What's up, my friends? Welcome to New Church Online. Thank you for hanging out with us this morning or whenever you may be tuning in. Today, we're going to be kicking it back to the Old Testament in a book called Joshua. And this is around 1250 BC, follows the events of the Exodus. So you've got Exodus out of Egypt, out of slavery, following Moses, crossing the Red Sea. We've got wandering in the wilderness, and then we've got Joshua chapter 3 on the cusp of entering the promised land. And to do so, they must cross the mighty Jordan River. And where we pick up, they have just sent some scouts out to survey the land on the other side. These guys came back and said, this is it. This is what we've been looking for. And so chapter 3, verse 1, if you can read along, if you have a Bible app, or just listen. Early the next morning, Joshua, who is the leader right now, he was Moses' successor, he's the leader. The next morning, Joshua and all the Israelites, so the whole Israelite nation, left Acacia Grove. This is the city they were staying. Some Bibles may say Shittim. They left Acacia Grove and arrived at the banks of the Jordan River, where they camped before crossing. 3 days later, the Israelite officers went through the camp, giving these instructions to the people. When you see the Levitical priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God, move out from your positions and follow them. Since you have never traveled this way before, they will guide you. Stay about a half a mile behind them, keeping a clear distance between you and the Ark. Make sure you don't come any closer. Then Joshua told the people, purify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do great wonders among you. In the morning, Joshua said to the priests, lift up the Ark of the Covenant and lead the people across the river. And so they started out and went ahead of the people. He gave this command as well in verse 8. This is from the Lord. Give this command to the priests who carry the ark. When you reach the banks of the Jordan, take a few steps into the river and stop there. So Joshua relays this to the people in verse 13. It says, the priests will carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth. And as soon as their feet touch the water, the flow of water will be cut off upstream, and the river will stand up like a wall. Verse 15, it was the harvest season, and the Jordan was overflowing its banks. But as soon as the feet of the priests were carrying the ark touched the water at the river's edge, the water began backing up a great distance. So, huge journey, Israel, coming through the desert, ups and downs. They get to the banks of the Jordan River. And the Jordan, at this time, as it says, it's overflowing and it is mighty. Now today, if we were able to look at the Jordan, or if you Google the Jordan now in modern day, it doesn't look like that. It's a pale comparison to what it once was due to development and farming and dams. It is a fraction of what it once was. But at this time, it was a mighty river. It was formidable. It was not something that you would just casually walk across. This is not a creek. And so they get up to this river, and you've got families and elderly and children and livestock, and you've got all your supplies. You've got this city that is trying to move, and now it's on the banks of this mighty river. So now what? And they've been through a lot on this journey. If you followed any of the story of the Exodus and the wandering in the wilderness, there is a lot that's happening there. And in fact, they faced the body of water like this before that they could not cross. In fact, that's how the whole journey got started. And now they're kind of back at this again. When they left Egypt, the first big obstacle they had was the Red Sea. And like, oh no, we're going to die here. We're not going to be able to cross. And what happened? God was faithful. And through that 40-year journey of wandering in the wilderness, Israel, the people, proved that they would continue to fail, and God would prove that he would continue to be faithful. He will continue to be faithful. God's faithfulness is always greater than my failure. God's faithfulness is always greater than my failure. It's always greater than your failure. It's always greater than our failure. God's faithfulness is greater than my failure. And so we saw Joshua. He's excited. He's got to get his mind together on this thing. He's seeking the Lord. He's up early. And they arrive at these banks, and they're not going to cross right away. They're going to have to wait a moment. They camp out here for a few days, and they wait and they watch and they listen, because they had not gone this way before. When you don't know where you're going, take it slow. Take it slow. Take it slow and listen and watch and see what God does. Take it slow and wait for directions and see what God does. We wait because we don't know where we're going. And so he says to the people who are camped out there, and they're waiting, and they're excited, but they're also a little anxious. They also don't know how this is going to work out. Joshua says, hey, when you see the ark go by. Now the ark, if you're not familiar, think back to Indiana Jones. It's like this sacred box with these sacred artifacts in it that represented God's faithfulness. It represented the high priesthood. It represented provision. It represented the law. And it was this cool box. It was covered in gold. It had these angels on it. And that's where God's presence would be. So when the people were traveling, that represented where God's presence was. It was often kept deep inside a series of rooms in this tent, in the Holy of Holies. And only once a year, high priests would go in there. So this is a very sacred object, and it represented God being with us. When you see the ark go by, when you see the presence of God, when you see God is with us, when you see it's moving, you move. When you see it's moving, you move. When the ark is in motion, be ready to get in motion. Which is different than saying, hey, when that ark starts to move, start breaking down your camp. Start breaking down your camp, which is something that might happen in my house, right? Hey, everyone, it's time to go. Okay, just a sec. Anyone ever hear that? Just a sec. I'm jumping in the shower. Just a sec. Oh, I'm almost ready. Just a sec. We got to go now. Just a sec. Just a sec. I mean, how many of us respond to God that way? Like the ark would be going by us and our camp and our life. Like, oh, just a sec. I'll be right there. And Joshua's like, no, you got to be ready to move. You got to be ready to go. Oh, just a sec. Just a sec, God. And how often do we respond to God like that? Just a sec. God's like, oh man, I kind of need you to make some changes. Okay, just a sec. God's like, I love for you to reach out to the person. Okay, just a sec. God's like, I think I need you to do something a little different with your life. Oh, just a sec. It's about preparation here. Joshua's getting his people ready. It's about preparation. It's about being prepared for God to move when he moves. And ready to move when he moves. A number of years ago, I had this opportunity to climb Mount Whitney. And with some friends, and Mount Whitney, if you don't know, is the highest peak in the continental U.S., over 14,000 feet. And we're doing something like that. It's in your best interest to prepare. You want to be ready. You want to prepare, especially because not only did I not do that before, I hadn't done anything like that before. We want to be ready for that. Just like we talked about, we want to be ready for a divine moment, the God opportunity, the sacred shift in your everyday. Let's be ready for that. Joshua said, be ready for the divine moment. Be prepared for that. And so we're preparing for Mount Whitney. It's preparation. It's thinking about, what do I have to do? What does my body have to be like? What kind of gear do I need? We put together some outings. We're going to Real Cheap Sports. We're getting shoes and backpacks. And I'm running and walking on inclines. We did a bunch of small hikes. We did some big hikes and some high elevation. See how your body would respond over 10,000 feet. And even getting up there, the night before the hike, we drive up to the portal. It's like 8,600 feet just to kind of feel it out and acclimate a little bit. We go to dinner the night before this massive climb. We go to this little Mexican restaurant. I'm not hungry, but I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to take it easy. Because I'm thinking about how this is going to affect me the next day. How is my choice right now going to affect me tomorrow? How's what I put into my body going to affect me tomorrow? How's what I'm going to put into my mind, put through my eyes, going to affect me tomorrow when there's an opportunity to do something? And so we took it easy that night. It was always great for me. Like, let's take it easy. Now, most of us were actually, one of the guys, I don't know, let's call him Dave. He went all in on this like super gigante wet burrito. I mean, it was crazy. It was a football. It was a football covered in red chili sauce and cheese. And that's like what he's getting ready to go on this massive hike. This all day long, uphill, grueling, enduring hike. And he throws down the super gigante wet burrito. And it might have felt good in that moment, but it did not feel the next day at 12,000 feet. It did not feel good the next day at 12,000 feet. And it's one of those moments, we've all had them, right? And you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't eaten that. I wish I hadn't done that. We want to be ready for the journey. We want to be ready for when the presence of the divine is moving. Let's be ready. You know, when I think about it, I want to have less moments of regret. I want to have less moments where I say, wow, wish I would have said. I wish I would have said. I want to be ready to say what I need to say. I wish I would have seized that opportunity. I want to be ready to seize the opportunity. I wish I would have given it one more chance. I want to be ready to endure. I wish I would have said I'm sorry. I wish I would have said I love you. Like even now, in a world where so many need encouragement, are you prepared to give encouragement? As the church, if you are a follower of Jesus, a believer in God, a hoper who hopes, are you prepared to give encouragement? Are you prepared to be used by God to be an agent of hope to someone without? And it's hard to be that when you're not prepared. If you're driven by negativity and despair and anxiety and pessimism, it will be hard for you to be used as an instrument of encouragement because you're not prepared. And when we're not prepared, we can miss God. We can miss God. We can miss His activity, what He's doing, what He's saying, where He's going. I once missed a bus in high school. I missed a lot of buses in high school. I lived pretty far from the high school, and I always had to take the bus. And I missed the bus a lot. But this time, I missed the team bus from my basketball team. And it was the first away game of the year. And I'm ready to play. I am dressed to play. I am excited to play. But an ill-timed run to the bathroom cost me the chance to play. I didn't get a chance to play. And to this day, I cannot quite figure out how that happened. Like, how did those 2 minutes I was in there, the bus get away so quickly? But it did. It did. And of course, getting back to practice with the team the next day was unpleasant. Like if I'm on the court and we're trying to run plays, I miss an assignment or position or a play, coach is yelling, "Julio, you still in the bathroom?" It's hard. You know what? I didn't want to miss it, but I did. Many of us have missed opportunities. You look back, I wish I didn't, but you did. You didn't want to, but you did. Maybe you had an opportunity to share your faith with someone and you missed it. Maybe it was a different career. You feel like, I missed it. A chance at love, words you wish you'd said, you missed it. And so now what? And so now what? Now we move forward to the next one, to the next moment, and we try to be prepared a little better. He says, he said to the people here, when you get yourselves, lift up the ark of the covenant. He says, lift the ark in the covenant. Joshua told the people, purify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do great wonders among you. Purify yourselves. And this is sanctify, holify, set yourselves apart. Make yourselves right with God. That would be in our context. Make yourselves right with God, because tomorrow He's going to do great wonders among you. He's going to do great wonders among you. Be ready. Prepare yourself. Prepare your possessions. Pack up your stuff. Physically, be prepared. Prepare your body mentally. Prepare yourself spiritually for what God's going to do. Prepare yourself. God is going to do wonderful things. Prepare yourself. God is going to do wonderful things. Do you believe that? Do you even believe that? God is going to do wonderful things in your life. He is going to do wonderful things in your life, through your life. And I know that, because if I were to sit down with you and talk, I bet He's already done wonderful things in your life. Already done wonderful things through your life. And He's not done yet. He's not done yet. Our message, be prepared. Be prepared for the next time so we don't miss it. Get ready. Are you ready? Are you ready for tomorrow? Man, tomorrow we're going through the river. We're not going around it, not over it. We're going through it. We are going through it. Sometimes you just have to go through it. Anyone ever feel like that? Like, I'm just going through it. I'm going through it right now. Well, we're going through it. We're going through it. You got to go through it. You don't get to go around it. You don't get to go over it. You got to go through it. And God shows us who we are, but what He brings us through. He shows us who we are, but what He brings us through. When He leads us through that stuff, when we get on the other side, and we are a different person. Stepping down to the river for everybody was an act of faith. Joshua, get your stuff ready. We're following these guys. Like, wow, this river looks pretty scary. It's overflowing at the banks. He asked the people, come down. He asked it of the people, come down, take a step of faith, follow me. And God's asking us today that. Take a step of faith, follow me. Take a step into something you've never experienced before. Oh, we've never been this way. We don't know where we're going. Take a step of faith. Take a step of faith into something you never understood before and probably sounds like it might not work. They're like, yeah, I don't know. That was a long time ago that He did the thing at the sea, and this thing is like moving really fast. I don't know if it's going to work. Take a step. Will you put your feet in the water? Will you get your feet wet? That's all He said. Take some small steps to the priest. Take us some small steps. And you don't have to have a great faith. Sometimes we talk about, we got to build up our faith. We got to build up our faith. You don't have to have a great faith because you have a great God. We have a great God. You just need some faith. You need a little faith. Jesus even said like this, even if you have faith like a mustard seed, the smallest thing, Even if you have a little small faith, you can move mountains. And our faith doesn't work because we're so great. It's because God's so great. You just need a little faith. You need a little faith. And that story, when Moses led the crossing, if you could picture, if you've seen the movie or read the story, read the book, he gets up to this sea, and the Egyptian army is hot in pursuit, and they are stuck between this body of water and this really powerful, violent army who's super upset right now. And he gets up there, and what does he do? He stands over it. Everyone's behind him. He lifts up his staff, and the waters part. The waters part, and the people are like, oh, okay, it looks dry. Let's go in. Let's go in, which is amazing. And that is an act of faith. But look where they are now. Look where they are now. God said, get in first. Get in. Touch that water. Get your feet wet and watch what happens. Because then it was okay. Then it was okay. Your faith was in a certain place where, oh boy, I don't know if I can do that. Let me just show you. Done. Now he's saying, you move toward the water while it's still moving. You put your feet in the water while it's still rushing by. And it can be scary, that first step. Think of any of us who've raised kids, you've watched kids. Like when you go to the ocean, you're little, it's scary. It's very scary at first. It's coming and going, and it's dark and wild, and you're intimidated. And those little waves can seem really big in the ocean. But over time, you get more comfortable. You get more comfortable playing in those waves, stepping further out. Enjoying it all the more. Not because you can control it, right? But because you have faith that you will be safe. You will be safe. Some of us have been in the water a long time, and we've just been wading in the shallows. Like you've just kind of been wading in the shoreline. Maybe it's time to go deeper. And if you're not involved in faith at all, like, yeah, it does seem scary. You're just looking to get started. Just dip in a little bit. Like, okay, maybe there's a God. Are you up there? I'm okay. Like, I'll try this a little bit. That's a huge step. But some of us have been hanging out there for a long time. And what have you done with your faith? What have you really done? What are the great acts of faith in your life? Well, when I was 18, I went on this mission trip. Great. What have you done for me lately? God might say to some of us, wade out into the water. Wade out into the water. Maybe it's time to go deeper. Maybe you're too comfortable in the water you're in. This past summer, we checked out a really cool national park called Crater Lake. And it's this crater. It's a volcanic crater filled with this beautiful blue, deep blue, clear water. And you can hike down to it in a few different spots and swim in it. And it's cold, but it is just majestic. And you get down to this rocky shoreline of this lake. If you've seen any pictures of it, it's unbelievable. And there's like a rocky kind of shoreline, and it kind of drops off, and you can see it. You can see where it drops off. You can kind of wade into it a little bit, but it gets deeper, quicker, and faster. And it goes from like a little shelf where you can kind of stand on some rocks to like 90 feet. Really fast, super fast, like this far out. Like you're standing there and it's all of a sudden it's 90 feet. And then it's 1,200 feet. And then it goes almost 2,000 feet, just like that. Just like that. There is not this sort of like gradual, like I'm walking down the sand. It just goes. It just goes. And I'm floating out there, wading into it. And I'm like, I want to go out there. I want to be part of that. I want to be in the middle of it. But as I start moving into it, I'm scared. I'm terrified. I don't know if the Loch Ness Monster's brother lives there or American cousin. Like, it just feels like that. It's super clear, but like super dark too. And it's terrifying, but it's exhilarating. And so I float out for a little bit. I imagine going way off the shore, and I just got just far enough to be like, okay, I can't take it anymore. And I'm glad I did. And I had to be careful because I had just eaten a super gigante burrito. But I got out. I'm floating. This is unbelievable. But I was a little uneasy. And I come in, and we're starting to leave, and I'm looking out like, man, I wish I went out further. I wish I went out further. I thought, well, next time. I want to go out further. Some of us need to take our faith further today. Scratch that. All of us need to take our faith further today. Because we all have room to grow. We can all go a little deeper. Like Jesus invites his disciples into the deeper waters. The deeper waters. And maybe for you, deeper water is just the water at all. And maybe for you it's waist deep. Maybe that's for you like letting go of the side. Maybe that's that conversation you have to have. Maybe that's giving. Maybe that's missions. Maybe that's moving. Maybe it's accepting Jesus. Maybe that's baptism. You're like, okay, I got to go a little further. I want to take this a little further and see what God does, because he's going to do wonderful things. Let's pray. God, thank you for who you are, for your story. Lord, for people like this who are just like us, who've been through it and are full of failure, but full of experiencing your faithfulness, Lord. Lord, I pray for anyone right now who is just way out there. Maybe you're tuning in and you don't know why you're here, why you're listening. So I invite you to take a step of faith into the Jesus story. You don't even have to understand it to take a step into it, to accept Jesus and begin. And for some of us who've been wading in waters that are just too comfortable, maybe it's time. And you know there's a knock in your heart. Maybe it's to lead your family a little better. Maybe it's to quit doing some of that stuff you're doing. Maybe that's generosity. Maybe that is something in the mission field. Maybe that's repairing a broken relationship that you've been ignoring. Take a step of faith and see what God might do. And let's all be ready and prepared for the wonderful things God's going to do in this city right now and in the years to come. We love you, God. Thank you for being with us. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging out. Don't forget your kids. We'll see you soon. Peace.